Yeah, go for it. If I ever
No,
get distracted
you
with
go
them.
for it, sir. You intro the
Welcome.
podcast.
Welcome to the show, the episode of the podcast, Tougie's Take Podcast, starring myself, Endo, aka It's Just Endo, because I dropped the mills out of there, because why not? And with our beautiful co-host, name of the show, the namesake, and the guy who pays me, Tougie, at Tougie24, here with our special guest, very special guest, because believe it or not, before doing Tougie's Take Podcast, I was going to do a podcast with this guy.
I remember that.
I dropped the ball completely, and now I'm third fiddle on Tougie's Take. Rahil, an angry brown guy, Chocolate Thunder, whatever name you got. Welcome to the show. Glad to have you here. It's kind of a reunion of some sorts. But how you doing, buddy?
Doing awesome. Super excited to be on with you guys. Thank you for having me on. And gotta say, you guys picked a really good episode to have a Habs fan on, and I'm sure we'll get into it in a little bit. But we're feeling good in Habs land today.
Yeah, that was what I mentioned to you a few minutes ago was like, all right, Sin is literally, as we're recording this, just about ready to board a flight over to Finland. And it's like, oh God, what are we gonna do? Who are we gonna have on the show? Is it just gonna be Endo and I? And then it came down to the news this morning that we will get into, and I'm like, I know exactly who needs to be on this show, and it is great to have you here, as Endo mentioned. Known for the handle. There were a few different handles before you settled on Angry Brown Dude with what is it, 90,000 followers on TikTok.
Just over, yeah, just hit 90. So
good
pretty
stuff.
Pretty good.
And
Congrats.
of course, I was on your podcast along with Saphir on the Hockey News. Not all that long ago, actually in February. Jeez, that was 4 months ago already. Good God.
Feels weird when you say that. Like, oh my God, 4 months already.
Ridiculous, isn't it? But yeah, no, man, it's been a long time coming to have you on the show, and I'm very, very glad that you are here. And now I gotta have Saphir on at some point too. Clearly,
he can wait a bit. He can wait a bit.
So today we are gonna have kind of our normal format for the show. We'll start off with some viewer questions and fun stuff like that before getting into the big hockey news, which there's actual hockey to talk about. There's fun off-season stuff to talk about. And then not so fun off-ice bullshit to talk about. Not looking forward to that. I already put out a video about that subject, but hey, we'll get into it again. Why not? But Endo, since you took the lead on the intro, and why not? Who's this? Remind me, who sponsors this podcast?
I believe it should be Manscaped. I think all three of us are sponsored by Manscaped at some point.
Yeah, at some point, I think so. Tell us a little bit more about Manscaped. I have no idea what you guys are talking about.
Yeah, so it's the leading product here for male body grooming. You know, you got several tools, you got several things that you can use. You can use my favorite thing, the crop preserver, to take care of your crops. You got the lawnmower 4.0. It's got the little light on there. You can go through, waterproof, use it while you're in the shower, in the bath, if you really want to. Hey, I'm not going to judge you the way whatsoever. And then you have the one product that I can't use because I don't grow facial hair, unlike both of you guys over here.
Oh, don't even put me in the same category, dude. I got nothing. You're a neck beard.
You got a little neck chin. You got a little something there. Don't worry about it. It's okay.
Awful.
Yeah. Tell us more about the beautiful products by the people over at Manscaped, Tougie.
I mean, I think you pretty much hit the nail on the head. But again, as Endo Mills mentioned, Manscaped.com, the peak, the pinnacle when it comes to men's grooming. And they want to offer you a special discount, 20% off your order. And free shipping when you use code Tougie. That's TOUGIE at manscaped.com. Again, code Tougie at manscaped.com. We thank them for sponsoring the show, and we thank all of you for sending in your viewer questions to kick us off. Although, first question comes from me. Rahil.
Yes.
On Twitter. Your bio.
Yes.
Talk about NHL esports on the Hockey News, which again is tremendous.
Mm-hmm.
You got to update. It's now 90,000 on TikTok, not 89,000. Yeah. Habs, understandable. Yeah. Blue Jays, understandable. Only baseball team in Canada.
Yeah.
Bayern Munich.
Yep.
And the New England Patriots.
Yep.
No, he's just a patriot himself.
I mean, yeah, a little bit. I'm assuming your question is about the latter two.
Okay.
Yeah, more so the Patriots. Why?
Yeah,
I mean, again, because I feel like a vast majority of Canadian fans, I mean, to me, it feels like just ends up being Buffalo because of how accessible it is. But you're not the only Patriots fan I'm aware of.
Yeah, and for me, it was I started getting into it around 2003, 2004 is when I kind of was like, okay, I like American football, cool, I'm gonna pay attention. And I remember like just trying to pick a team, and I can't remember who I was watching, and I was like, this is boring, this is boring. Then I saw Tom Brady and Randy Moss play a game together. I don't know, I think it might have been a little bit after 04, but it was that 1 year.
07.
And that's what I was just, it was 07. I was just like, okay, you know what? These guys are good. I'm going to stick with this duo forever. And then Randy Moss was gone, and then Tom Brady just did it all on his own. But that's basically how the Patriots came to exist.
Yeah, we'll ignore a few Super Bowl appearances before 2001.
We'll not talk about that.
That's like talking about the Habs, like 93 and
who cares? 93. I wasn't even thought of when the Habs last won a cup, but I'm going to brag about it. Yeah.
Now, I will say, in order to be a good host here, I never know, because it's one of those things. It's like, hey, you're a guest on a podcast. In terms of the promotion, like, I don't know if you want to do the whole, hey, so how'd you get into hockey? And hey, tell people what you really do. I'll leave that up to you. If you want to get into that, cool. If you want to be asked weird questions by this community, we can jump right to that too.
Why don't we do both, Tougie?
There you go.
Perfect. Why not?
I like this guy.
So, give me your life story.
Yep. Okay. So, so I'll give you the hockey life story because I have to admit this is one of my favorite stories to tell. So I'm kind of glad you asked it. Grew up, immigrant family. My dad's parent. I'll give you a bit of the life story. Actually, dad's parents are from Pakistan, but he was born and raised in England, so he's British basically. Mom was from Pakistan. They came here, got married. Boom, I was here. Not really a big hockey family, obviously being an immigrant family. The big thing for my dad was he was just like, local team, I go for whoever's local. So he's Leafs, Jays, Argos, the Bills, because they're the closest. Like, he's super local. And I can't remember what it was, 2004, 2005, around the same time I started watching football. I was like, I moved to Brampton, and which is a town just northwest of Toronto-ish. And my neighbors down the street loved playing hockey. I started playing with them, borrowed their sticks, and I went home and told my dad I wanted to get into hockey. And he was like, cool. Well, bought me my first hockey stick and stuff, so I'd play some road hockey. And then he bought me a pack of hockey cards from McDonald's because, and I still remember this to this day. He was like, here you go. Whatever you want to do, like, cheer for whoever you want to cheer. Like, he was just like, it's your choice, son. So I go, all right, well, the first card in this pack, I'm going to cheer for them. So I opened the pack, and the first card was Saku Koivu of the Montreal Canadiens, and they beat Boston that night 5-2. Funny enough, and
funny.
Yeah, and I was just like, you know what, I'm gonna stick with these team, and I get chirped about it living in Toronto. It is what it is, but you know what, I don't regret it for a second. It's been awesome. I try and go down once a year to watch the Habs play there when they're mediocre. Well, I'm not going to talk about that. But it's I brought my girlfriend with me the last couple of years, and it's just awesome. I love it, man.
Fair enough. I respect it. I like that too, because obviously I feel like the most common thing is like, oh, who do your parents like?
Yeah,
and,
exactly.
Like, I've told the story. For me, it's like I was in Bruins stuff as a baby. I didn't have a goddamn choice. Are you kidding me? Which again, every time I say that, people are just like, child abuse every time. But
to be fair, I did get lucky. I'm really glad it wasn't like Shane Doan or Rick Nash as the first card, because I would have probably been a little miserable for the last 15, 20 years.
I mean, hey, we have a Nasher in the space. We could have used a donor.
Yeah.
Fair
enough.
All right, so our first question comes from one Scroopy Noopers, and hey, relevant to the Habs. With the success of Martin St. Louis as the newer coach, who would be a former player turned new coach or GM who you'd like to see join the league? I'd like to see Cam Granado or Paul Correa. See, sometimes we vet these questions a little bit ahead because I'm like, all right, can we really get a conversation out of this? This time I'm like, screw it, let's just throw it out there and see what happens. I mean, my only response is if George Peros can hold down a job in an NHL setting, then anybody can hold down a job as a GM or as a coach. Why not? Well, not a coach, because outside of, every year you get one, maybe two new people, and then it's the same people refreshed, which again we will get to. God, I don't know. I have to view it as like, okay, who would I be happy for to see find success? And I agree, someone like a Paul Kariya would be great, but every time his name's brought up, it always seems to be like, yeah, he probably wants nothing to do with the NHL, and who could necessarily blame him? I'm just still happy, despite it being for the Habs, for Martin St. Louis doing a tremendous, tremendous job.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. He's been doing fantastic. That's a really hard question, man. Like, I'm trying to think, like, can I talk about players that are close to retiring? Like, along those lines? Like, one that kind of ties into you, Tougie. I feel like Patrice Bergeron would be fantastic in a management role. Just the way he resembles hockey. He's literally, I don't think I've ever met one person who hasn't liked Patrice Bergeron, except for like when he scores against the Habs and it's like, damn you, beautiful, nice human being. Like,
I'd yell at you, but your father's in the press box and he's a Habs fan, so I won't.
Exactly. Yeah, I think I'd have to go. I think Patrice would be really interesting to see.
And anybody come to mind for you?
I think an obscure one would be Paul Bissonnette, just to see the chaos. Just to see the chaos. There was something that he did recently in one of the TNT, NHL and TNT things. I think one of the guys was away, so he took over kind of breaking down plays. And he like thoroughly just kind of went through it 100%. Even the guys on the panel were kind of surprised that he was like thoroughly being like, wow, Biz, you got brains between those ears? Like, what's going on? And it's just maybe not as like a head coach, but definitely as like an assistant coach kind of thing.
Yeah,
he seems like he would be kind of decent for that role.
I mean, hey, I'm not opposed to that. Just because the press conferences afterwards would always be must see. I want Paul Bissonnette and Paul Maurice to be on the opposite sides during a playoff series and have to go back and forth the press conferences.
Ooh,
two Pauls. There you go.
I like that.
God.
Oh, goodness. Well, you know what's funny is I could have held off on that Habs question for right now. This next question from Bouncy McBoink Boink. What was the defining moment that got you into hockey? I mean, really, we already kind of heard.
I'm good. I'm just going to sit here and listen.
Koivu. Endo, is there a defining moment, or was it more of just like, I just always remember liking this?
Okay, so Rahil knows this one because we talked about it previously when we were going to do a podcast together, but that fell apart. So when I first watched hockey, I was watching just a random game on. I think it was the Detroit Red Wings versus the Minnesota Wild. And it was the game where Dominic Hasek flies out and trips a dude. Like, blue line, full-on thrash through and flips a guy. And I said, I'm going to be a goalie, and I'm going to get myself into hockey that way. And it was unreal. I think I can pick it up right now. Hasek.
Inflicting violence.
Was it Marian Gaborik that he flipped?
It was Marian Gaborik, yeah.
How do I remember that? I don't even know.
Yeah, Minnesota Detroit. It was 5-0 Detroit, and then Marian Gaborik gets a breakaway. I think he's coming out of the box. I'm not sure. And then Dominic Hasek goes right out on the play of the puck and just takes out his fucking knees. Gary does a whole flip.
That's awesome.
The crowd's going insane and just absolute chaos. Yeah.
I wish I could say I have that one moment, but again, like I described it earlier, like it's been a constant. There wasn't that like, oh hey, this is, it was always on TV, or oh hey, what is this logo? It was always there. Like there just isn't. There isn't that one for me. The indoctrination was on point from day one. Again, I didn't have much of a say in the matter, but
I feel like at your baptism, because I believe you are like Catholic, you were dipped in Gatorade, just like Arctic Frost Gatorade, the white Gatorade.
God.
Zombie Nation playing in the background.
They got little the smoke thing, and it's just going.
Oh, I love it.
Well, that's
flinging the Gatorade water on the crowd. Oh!
God, well, that's number one. That's a visual that I'll never forget. And secondly, if you were wondering why the episode title is likely Kernkraft Baptism, now you know.
Oh
Fucking
man.
ridiculous. God damn. From Broken Wheelchair, no question, just wanted to mention, and fun fact, I was going to mention this anyway, and then I checked viewer questions and saw you mention it, so I'm glad. It was that the Para Ice Hockey, Sludge Hockey, World Championship Final was yesterday, with the United States defeating Canada 5-1. And of course, I cannot pronounce her name, but she got a lot of coverage for the Canadian team. She was the first woman to play for the Canadian national men's team as well for this particular tournament, but yeah, the U.S. getting it done. The U.S. is dominant in regards to this particular sport. I'm
They're really
overjoyed.
good at things. They're really good at things and they have to just sit on their ass. All credit to the Paralympic teams, because Broken Wheelchair is on a Paralympic team as well for lifting and for playing hockey. All hats to you. I can't do Paralympic or what's called sledge hockey. I've tried, not too good at it. But yeah, also that's I think it's Raphael Toussignan. She's Quebecois, hence the name, and how Tougie can't pronounce her. Amazing story about her becoming, the first female to play on the national team, especially for Canada. That's a big thing, but just in the world is another thing as well too.
Absolutely. I can't even sit properly sometimes. These guys can play a full game of hockey doing that. That's just speechless. Incredible stuff.
Definitely.
A very entertaining sport to watch, everybody. So if you haven't checked it out, I believe at least a lot of the game highlights from this past tournament are up on the YouTube side of things and relatively easy to find.
Yeah.
From Rahil's alt account, PK Subban enthusiast.
Damn it, you caught me.
With Eichel going to the Stanley Cup Final in his first full season with Vegas, do you think we've seen the last of the, quote, actually this star player is such a bad human being, it hurts them narrative? In the past several seasons, we've seen players such as Phil Kessel, PK Subban, and Ryan O'Reilly go to the finals immediately after getting run out of their respective towns due to locker room cancer allegations. Will we see orgs take more accountability instead? First and foremost, no. You will never see those type of narratives disappear, especially as long as Steve Simmons has a job in the world of hockey. It's a go-to for the media. It is. Whether or not it's true or not, that's always going to be a go-to, is we have to find somebody to blame. We see it now in Toronto. I was going to bring this up later, but now's the perfect time because it doesn't just apply to players. It applies to front office. It applies to coaches. Look at the Kyle Dubas situation. The day of his press conference, every Leafs fan, for the most part, is like, yes, let's bring him back. The second the Leafs let him go, you have the campaign out there to be like, actually, here's why Kyle Dubas is a piece of shit. And we saw that continue throughout the weekend because he, started to put his changes on the Pittsburgh Penguins as president, getting rid of some front office members who were all hired by the previous leader, Ron Hextall. And immediately, especially from Toronto, what a piece. I can't believe he would fire people. I look at, you had our new GM, our glorious new GM. Did you know his dad owns Boston Pizza? We had our glorious new GM shaking hands, kissing babies, making friends in the front office. He baked this person a cake, probably, just out of the kindness of his heart. But Kyle Dubas fired people. What a scumbag. You're never going to escape that shit. It doesn't matter if it's Phil Kessel and Steve said, oh, he liked to eat a lot of fucking hot dogs. Yeah, and he also liked to win championships, Steve.
I like hot dogs. What's their point, Steve?
I do too.
Jesus.
Hot dogs are fucking delicious.
Exactly.
Yeah, this whole thing of actually, here's why this person was bad will never go away because people always have to find someone to blame as to why things didn't go right. And once they leave, they just turn it up to 11.
Exactly. No, I think you touched a really interesting point there on the Kyle Dubas spot too, because the second he was with Pittsburgh, everyone was like, "Oh, well, you said you weren't going anywhere else." It's like he got fired. Technically not fired because he didn't have a contract, but right. I could say I'm not going to another job. If I get let go, I need to put food on the table, and I know Kyle Dubas is a lot more wealthier than I am, but the dude has to put money on the table. He has to go somewhere else. What are you supposed to do? Sit at home for 5 years?
Right. Yeah, and I mean,
Sorry,
it's that
Endo.
idea too of like
Oh, it's fine.
you get the keys to the car in Pittsburgh. And you weren't even asking for the keys to the car. In Toronto, he was just asking to be able to sit in the front fucking seat. Like, instead, Shanahan's like, nah, you're going to stay back there in the car seat, Kyle. I got this. No shit. Like, he took another job.
Exactly.
Yeah, I don't get it. And everyone's like, oh, if you liked Kyle Dubas, you're a Dubasite. I'm like, what the fuck kind of thing is this? Because like Parasite, Dubasite. I'm like, guys, you guys aren't even clever with these. Come on.
That's terrible.
It's insane because like you said, if you go to your boss and say, hey, I might need to take some time off, or I'm gonna go back to work with you, and then you're like, okay, cool, I'm gonna go back to work, and it's just like, all right, no, we don't want you back. See you later. Scram, we're not renewing your contract. All right, cool. I'm gonna go somewhere else and work. That's what everyone does.
You gotta work, exactly.
Yeah, you gotta make money. Granted, he's a fucking millionaire essentially, but at the same time, you got to put money on the table for your family. You can hold it with your family. Your family said, Kyle, maybe you should go back and do it. Yeah, sure. He's like, yeah, I'll send my boss a email saying, hey, I want a little bit more money and I want a little more control. And he's like, yeah, nope. Kicks you down the steps, kind of like Christmas Story when Ralphie asks for the rifle right in front of Santa. He's like, he'll shoot your eye out, kid. Just pushes him right down the slide. That's basically it. I have an idea. Oh, I have an idea.
That's gonna be a great edit up on Endo's Twitter, very very soon. Again, retiring the Mills at It's Just Endo.
Yes.
So make sure to look out for that. I'm sure we'll see it very soon. An example of you never know what the hell these questions are going to be from AJ. Favorite cartoon / TV show to movie adaptation.
I can't even think of that many cartoons that have been movies.
Right.
Like, oh my gosh. I think it's going to be the hardest part of the podcast.
They hit us with these questions like this all the goddamn time. So at least they're giving you an authentic experience of what it's like for us on a weekly basis.
Am I allowed to like stall in Google like TV show to movie ad? Okay.
Oh yeah, easily. Because again, they love these loaded questions where it's so non-specific. It's like, how do I possibly think of all the different aspects to this? And it's like, okay, cartoon to movie adaptation. Like, are we counting the fucking Rugrats movie for God's sakes? Like,
yeah,
it's a movie.
So okay, well, does a Netflix exclusive movie count? Because I'll go with El Camino, the Breaking Bad follow-up that they filmed a couple years after the show ended, because it was tremendous and a perfect way to continue the story yet also end the story. So I'll go with that. That was the first thing that comes to mind.
That's fair.
Jesus, that type of question.
That's hard. You know what I'm going to go with? I'm going to go with I think this is safe to say this is a cartoon that turned into, yeah, it is. Scooby-Dooby 2 Monsters Unleashed, 2004.
Isn't this the birth of like the Shaggy going Ultimate Instinct memes?
I think so. Yeah, that's where all those are from. They go to like an island. I vaguely remember. It was between this and like The Simpsons for me, but like, like that's all that was stuck in my head.
That was a good movie.
It was a really good movie. It was.
You see Bart's cock. I forgot about that. The other day I was just like, didn't they show like Bart's penis in like in the opening scene, and people were like, yeah, there's gonna be nudity in it for like a quick second, and no one knew it was gonna be like in the first like 2 minutes.
It's just like yeah. Are you going with The Simpsons and Endo, or you got another one?
I was gonna say the SpongeBob movie.
Oh, that's a good one. That's a good one.
That was good.
God, David Hasselhoff, what a man, saving the day.
Love it.
Well, I think this is the first podcast we've ever had where Bart Simpson's cock and David Hasselhoff have been mentioned. So, we're
cow, man.
This is what happens when Dad leaves on vacation. Sid come back fast.
He's gone to Finland for the milk.
Oh God.
Oh man.
Our final question from Bud Knight. Outside of your most common rival, what NHL team do you love to hate the most? Example, Habs fans can't say Boston, vice versa. What is the team that you would root against the most that is not the direct rival? Now, we had a question in the past, right? And I want to know if you agree with this, Rahil. Bruins Habs, it's always going to be a rivalry, but they're not top rivals right now.
They're not. There's always going to be a good rivalry there. The last time I can remember the Boston Montreal series being really, really good was when they played in the playoffs.
When Milan Lucic threatened to kill a man.
When Carey Price and Tim Thomas actually fought. That was a good fight.
10 years ago, man. Again, it sucks, but we're talking 10 years ago. So when we were asked that question, I'm like, well, it's Carolina. The Bruins have met the Canes in the playoffs. Both teams have won series. That's their current biggest rival. So that's how I would answer it. Is I can't answer Carolina. So I'm trying to think. And I think it was mentioned in our podcast question section. AJ designed this. Or not AJ, Bud Knight designed this for me to say Chicago because,
fuck Chicago.
Yeah, fuck Chicago.
That is a given. I'm trying to think of an answer to this that is not the go-to of that organization's ownership shouldn't own the fucking team anymore.
Fuck Vegas. There you go, flat out. I hate their social media team. I hate their way their management's run. I hate the way that they look. I hate the way that they sparkle on the ice. What is this?
I don't blame you there.
Yeah.
Do you have a go-to, Rahil?
I'm stuck between two right now. Okay? And I'll give you my logic. I'm going to put in for this question, not actual rivals. Second for me is Tampa, simply because of that Stanley Cup Final run and all that stuff. And, Tampa fans can be a little iffy. I think for me, the biggest.
I definitely still don't get hate comments from Lightning fans because I said, hey, maybe don't hold a parade in the middle of a pandemic before vaccines exist. No.
How dare you? But my number one is going to be Carolina.
Hey.
And it's not the Kakaniemi offer sheet. I'm honestly if that dude puts up 82 points in 82 games, good for you. We offer sheet, whatever. Their fans won't shut up about the Habs guys. They're we're going to offer sheet Cole Caufield. I'm guys, can you chill? Why are you getting mad at us? You got your Kakaniemi revenge. Their social media account it's very good at being petty, but it's always, I feel every 5 days it's petty against the Habs, which is why I don't bother. And you know what? We've won more conference finals games than Carolina in the last 15 years. So shut up.
Shit.
Sorry.
Just put them in their place.
There you go.
That's how much. Yeah. See, Carolina's my answer now.
You know what's funny?
0-12, right? Jesus.
0-12 since 2000, after 06, I think, because that's when they won.
They lost in 2009 to who'd they lose to? Yeah, Tampa. No, not Tampa. 2009. Jesus.
No.
Fucking Pittsburgh. They lost to Pittsburgh. Then they lost to Boston in 2019. And then this
Florida
as well to Florida. So they are 0-12 in the conference finals since winning the Stanley Cup. And it's funny that all three of us, as a Habs, Leaf, and Bruins fan, all have an axe to grind with the Hurricanes for one reason or another. It's just funny how that works, though.
Yeah.
God. So with that, and Endo saying Vegas, of course, thank you all for the questions. They were delightful. That can bring us into some actual hockey talk here. And as much as I want to start off with the Habs, I do want to lead in with the Stanley Cup Final. Because game 2 is tonight, but Vegas winning game 1 5-2, which just did not see that coming. Shout out to it was a chippy game. It was a pretty chippy game, to say the least, especially at the end. It was back and forth. Florida scores first, whatever, and then Vegas just takes over in the third period. Speaking to the chippiness, Matthew Tkachuk punching Nick Hague in the face while Nick Hague is being held by Mark Stahl, and Nick Hague laughing at him.
Oh, man.
That'll be the moment that people look back on if this series ends fast in favor of Vegas, where people are like, oof, right there is where Florida kind of lost the aura around them. That's a tough one. You had the Aiden Hill paddle save, which I do agree. And I want to know from you, because you play goalie.
Yeah.
Do you agree with the take that, okay, the save itself, while spectacular, isn't this crazy thing? It's more so the stage of it? Or do you disagree with those takes of like, no, that's still just a great fucking save and people are kind of minimizing how difficult that is?
Paddle save is a good save no matter where it is. That's what I'm going to say on it. It's because, like, yeah, sure, you're good at stick handling, but the fact that there's such a large margin of error with, like, gleaning where the puck's going to be when you have on your stick. Like, I'll grab one of my broken sticks and kind of demonstrate, but that's way too much work, and I'm too tired to do that. But when you're basically flipping that over, you have a whole, like, it's the equivalency of hitting a baseball. But, like, you're basically having one hand on the bat, and you're kind of, like, having to guess where it's going to go out when a puck's flying on you 60 to 80 miles per hour, if not faster.
Yeah,
so
I'd agree with that.
it is very difficult. And when you do make the save, obviously, it's big. But I feel like people are trying to downplay it because it's happened a lot this season. I would say it's happened a lot more this season than it has in previous seasons. And I think it might be a reason why people are like, oh, don't glorify it anymore. That's like the Michigan or Connor McDavid having a highlight reel goal because he has one every 5 games. Like, Connor McDavid does crazy shit every night. But he's out there with Edmonton. And if any other player would do what he would do every night, you would have that play on the highlight reel. Because it's Connor McDavid, it's like, okay, cool. He literally has to go through 5 people, do a full lap around, and go back again for it to be like a highlight reel goal now for him.
It's true. Can't disagree with it. As well in this game, you had the Mark Stone goal. So close to being a high stick, but it isn't. Frickin' Potts at top shelf. He has been insane. 7 goals now in the playoffs for him. A reminder of that Mark Stone trade, by the way, because obviously this was one of the ones where people are just like, all right, is Vegas giving up too much of their future? There was obviously the trade with, with Montreal in terms of the big deal there. But this one was Oscar Lindbergh, Eric Brandstrom, and a second-round pick in 2020 that became Igor Sokolov in exchange for Mark Stone and Tobias Lindbergh. Look, Eric Brandstrom's still a young guy. He's 23 years old. He can keep stepping up. I'm not going to use the word fleecing, but it's closer to fleecing for Vegas than it is for Ottawa. That was really not that much to give up in hindsight for the Vegas Golden Knights. Similar story to Aiden Hill. They gave up absolutely nothing to get him. He makes that save in this game, stops 33 of 35. He's been crazy. Any guesses of what his save percentage is in the playoffs right now, by the way?
In the entire playoffs? I don't want to
12
Google
appearances.
Yeah.
I'm going to go 926.
950.
938, so somewhere in between. But yeah, 938 with a
That's
206
insane.
goals against average for Aiden Hill.
That's
You know what's
insane.
crazy? Last week it was 950.
Wow, really?
That's how crazy it was. It was just the one game over here that bumped it up a little bit, bumped it down a little bit. Like he is an absolute, he is a good goaltender, and it's been really weird because I think the situation with goaltending in Vegas is kind of similar to their first season, where every goalie went down and they still found ways to win. I think right now they're on their 4th string at this point because
I think so.
Robin Leonard's been gone for the whole year. You have Thompson, Brassois, he's hurt,
and Quick.
and now it's
So they're on their 5th. Oh
they're
my
on their, I
God.
think they're on their 4th or their 5th. Brassois
They're going below the AHL depth. Like if you're going 2 per team, they're in like the ECHL. That's insane.
God,
It's insane.
I need to. I mean, now obviously it just shows the ridiculous overall depth, but for the hell of it, I just wanted to take a look at the organizational depth chart for Montreal, where you can argue. I mean, God, they technically only have 4 goalies signed: Alan Montembeau, Primo, Dobes, Besh, whatever, and then obviously there aren't too many other teams that could get away with this. The Leafs, you'd be running like Keith Petroselli, essentially. And the fact that their
Yeah.
fifth goalie is Aiden Hill is absurd.
And now I'm curious how many teams after this offseason are going to try and emulate that and go, I'm just going to get 3 1Bs instead of one like a 1 and a 2. If there's going to be those teams that go for that depth there, I don't know. I'm intrigued to see. I could see some teams going for it because I mean it's definitely benefited Vegas pretty damn well. So I wouldn't be that surprised. But yeah, it's going to be interesting.
And the other player I wanted to shout out here before mentioning Game 2 being tonight, Jack Eichel looked goddamn elite in Game 1 in terms of consistent zone entries, making it look seamless. This was exactly the player that Vegas thought they were getting. When it's like, okay, let's get Jack Eichel, let's let him get the surgery that he wants and heals up, and this is the guy he could be. And they were right to make that bet. He has looked every bit the former second overall pick and number 1 center that Sabres fans thought they were getting, and I would argue that they did have, and then there was that whole weird nonsense. But yeah, Game 2 is tonight, and potentially by the time this show is up, it will be over. The question, is it a 2-0 Vegas lead, or does Florida tie the series? Endo. It's going to take me a while to leave off the mills. Endo. Your thoughts?
Just Endo.
Just Endo.
Yeah, my thoughts. I think Florida's going to battle back, and it's going to be a really big test of adversity for Vegas. I mean, they kind of just had Game 1 all through, but I feel like there's going to be a fire underneath mostly Matthew Tkachuk, of all people, because of course it's Matthew Tkachuk, and he's going to come back and bounce back and be a defining force. I want to see Sasha Barkov. I want to see Barkov take a step up and get something. Like, he's been really quiet in terms of being like there per se. I mean, he's had some good goals and everything, but I feel like he needs to take a bigger step up because it seems like he's kind of like the shadow underneath, kind of making stuff happen. And when he makes a play, he makes good plays, but it's never like, oh, do you see that play that Barkov did? It's like, no, do you see the play that Barkov did? Yeah.
Yeah. 14 points for him in 17 games. Only 4 goals, though. So obviously he's going to be a little bit overshadowed by other members of the Panthers. Rahil, your thoughts? Game 2.
I personally would love to see Florida tied up simply because more hockey for the rest of us. And if Game 1's a sign of how the series is going to go, I think all of us want 7 games. That being said, I think that environment in Vegas, if they can score first, we saw it in Game 1, that arena is electric. And I feel like their fans have been very privileged with the team they have. They're like, oh, we're finally back in the finals. It's like, you haven't been around for a decade yet. Like, don't cry. But I don't know. I could see, like, Florida scored early last game and Vegas still found a way. I think Vegas goes up 2-0.
I think so too, because Bobrovsky looked human again. And again, already it's like, all right, Bobrovsky looked human in Game 1. Matthew Tkachuk, Sam Bennett tried their typical nonsense, and it didn't work. They got laughed at by Nick Hague. That would scare me a little bit. Like, a lot of what kind of the tactics they used. I mean, obviously having a red hot goaltender and a lot of the after whistle scrums, it's like Vegas hung right there with them.
Yep.
I don't know. I think Florida's in big trouble if they go down 2-0 tonight, and I think they're going to. So
yep, I agree with that. Just one final caveat on that. I will say the last time the Vegas Golden Knights were in the playoffs was 2021, and Montreal lost Game 1, and they won that series. It's not impossible.
Sergei Bobrovsky, Gary Price, one and the same.
Basically.
God, it wouldn't be this podcast without the frickin' Charles Barkley impression at this point. So with that, let's get to the main event of this podcast. Not really. It's the co-main event, really. The Montreal Canadiens have re-signed forward Cole Caufield to an 8-year extension with a cap hit worth $7.85 million per. Now, before we talk about what this turned into, we must first just talk about this at its face value, what it means for the Habs, what it means for Cole Caufield. In terms of what it means for the Habs, they lock up another young piece of the core. They already have Suzuki, their captain, 23 years old, for 7 more seasons. You add Caufield for the 8. You have some other young players. Kirby Dach has 3 years left on a deal. You get the other young players, particularly on defense, that they're building up. You secure a piece of the core without worrying about a bridge deal or anything like that. It's, hey, potentially, maybe slightly overpaying in the short term. I mean, again, only 123 games played, but 84 points, 53 goals on his career so far. Maybe a slight overpayment now, but it's the idea of the Svechnikov contract in Carolina. What is he likely to turn into? Who cares if his defense isn't that great? It doesn't need to be. That can be developed, because what he's good at, you can't teach. You really can't. Yeah, he's coming off of a shoulder surgery. That's a bit scary too. But for me, from the outside looking in, like, yeah, this is what you do. This is the shot you take for a core piece that can help you, dare I say, win something. I don't see, and I haven't seen a single Habs fan be upset about this. I don't know how they could. Rahil, the floor is yours.
Well, you're gonna hear the first. No, I can't even. I can't even joke about that. When I first heard it, I thought it was a troll. I was like, how did we get him for under 8? I thought people in my Discord who were tagging me were messing with me. Absolutely fantastic deal. I think I kind of agree with what you're saying on the point of, technically speaking, you could argue it's, a little bit of an overpayment now, but I think if you were to say that to a Habs fan, which you did, and what I'm going to say back is what I think a lot of Habs fans are going to say, you need to watch this kid play under Marty St. Louis. In 83 games under Marty St. Louis, he has 48 goals and 71 points. If he emulates that, this is very close to a point per game player for $7.8 million, and I wouldn't be surprised if he got over a point per game. I'm ecstatic, and listen, I think the nice thing I get to brag about too is one of the open things that Cole Caufield said was he basically just said, you know what, Nick Suzuki's my captain. I'm not making more than him. And that reminds me of Nathan McKinnon's deal before he cashed in, where he was like, I'm going to take a bit of a team-friendly deal here. Let's go win some stuff. I'll make my money. And I see Cole Caufield trying to emulate that a little bit, because the Habs have way more cap room than they thought they would after this deal.
Can't disagree with it, yeah. I mean, it's
not wrong.
I think that's the key thing, right, is a lot of that, because I needed to bring up the argument of some people being like, hey, it's an overpayment. And I think there's some validity to that, but I'm with you in that he got off to such a slow start because of the coaching. That was such a huge part of it before Marty St. Louis was brought in. I mean, those were some interesting times. Let's be honest. The past 3 years for Habs fans in particular have been 3 of the strangest in my lifetime, at least. I don't know if there's ever been a more up and down, tumultuous period for the Canadiens in this time. I think it's going to be a great deal. I really do. And,
I absolutely.
If it backfires, it was worth the risk. So what's the harm in it? Like,
exactly.
What's the alternative? You bridge deal him because he had one RFA year left and then 3 RFA arbitration years left.
Yeah.
So you bridge deal him. And eventually down the road, you risk, okay, well, here's these negotiations and all. You avoid so much by just getting this deal done now. The player's happy. I did laugh when he said, I do. He did the David Pasternak of, I just love it here so much and love playing. I do it for free. which again always raises the well, why didn't you?
Yeah, exactly.
Take that
League min then, Cole?
$750K. Take that league min. There you go. No,
With
but
a
he got
$5
paid with
million
his work, yeah.
signing bonus that he'll get paid on July 1st.
Just a fat
I'd
stack.
do it for free though.
I do it all
man.
for the freeness, for the nookie.
I think. Sorry, I'm gonna give one note real quick. I think the perfect tweet I saw that summarized this was from Cat Friendly, and it was talking about who his contracts compared to: Jordan Kyrou, Andrei Svechnikov, Matthew Boldy, Brady Tkachuk, Clayton Keller. Caufield's in like that's a good 5 players to be around, and I think that's kind of where he is. I know some of them obviously play at different more games. Svechnikov's also on a stupidly good deal at that rate, but like even Jordan Kyrou, who's like a little bit like he had a bit of an okay year. Like I don't think anyone's saying he's overpaid at 7.8, whatever he's making. So I think I'm happy, and just to rub it in a little bit to Endo, this season, even with the injury, Cole Caufield had a higher goals per game than Austin Matthews.
That's great.
Wow.
I'm not even a
Endo
hockey fan at this point.
Endo's
That's
the
the thing.
most.
You don't know. I'm not even a hockey fan at this point. I don't even like the Leafs. I left with the Dubasides, and I took my talents to Pittsburgh. I already know fucking half of the. I already know half of the prospects in the system with Wilkes-Barre.
Are we serious, or like are you like?
I mean,
Joke.
I already was a distant fan of Pittsburgh in general because I have a buddy who played in the A and the ECHL with them. So like I knew the whole system. I knew some of the guys there. So like part of me is like, oh sweet, now Kyle Davis is going to be there. I know for a fact he's not going to get paid. So whatever.
Fair enough. There's no pens on that tweet, so I can't talk smack. But fair enough.
No, I'm still somewhat a Leafs fan. I just like the blue and white. The colors are nice. That's pretty much it.
Yeah, fair enough. But yeah, I think Caufield's going to have a lot of fun.
All of those players you named, again, are players that any of those teams risking not signing them would have been so much worse than just signing them and hopefully they are what you think they're going to be. There's no real downside to, even if it is viewed as a bit risky, there's no real downside to signing Cole Caufield to this contract. Because as you mentioned, it still feels like it's less than it should have been.
Exactly.
Which led to the entire fucking shit show today. And I don't know what side started it. Let's be honest. It was probably the trolly Habs fans, because every fan base has them, chirping their Leafs friends and followers by saying, look what our guys did, but Matthews, Marner, and Neitler, they didn't. And being
Schoolboy! Who's no captain? Oh, he died like a bitch. And it points back to the fucking knee meme. Oh man. I'm
gonna make a Habs one of that real quick. Where's meme generator?
Oh my god,
Cap
you both have great content coming out of this. It's just like, look, it's been the biggest conversation aside from like, oh, Cole Caufield doesn't play defense, which who gives a fuck? Really, who cares?
He's a forward. If there's one thing I want to say before you go on your tangent, is that Cole Caufield put up those numbers while playing on a subpar Habs team. Does no one understand that? If a player does good production on a shit team, look at Erik Karlsson. That man put up 100 points, driving those children on the San Jose Sharks, kicking and screaming to what? Like 5th in the draft this year? Like what are they, 5th, 6th?
They're 4th, we're 5th. And
fourth.
Mitch Goff and Caufield are going to tear it up.
That's even more. That's even better. He had 100 points, driving children on a bus.
True.
So I looked it up because Dauber Sports has it. And it's funny because they also have Caufield's 21-22 season, and they sum it up via 4 quarters. And you can literally see quarter 1, 15 games, 3 points. Quarter 2, 13 games, 5 points. Quarter 3, 12 and 12. Guess when Martin St. Louis was hired.
I don't know.
But this season, lines by quarter, his most common lines, Suzuki and Doc or Suzuki and Monahan, were pretty much his most common line mates. And then by the time he got hurt, he had played with Suzuki and Ilanen. He had played with Suzuki and Mike Hoffman, and the Donoff and Suzuki. I mean, and you know, Nick Suzuki as well as a younger player too. Like, he's obviously very, very good. Named the captain of the team. He's still developing too. It's not as if Nick Suzuki is like, oh yeah, you have him next to Leon Draisaitl and he's guaranteed to put up points. It's not a guarantee whatsoever. All of that to say, again, that Habs Leafs connection was just everywhere today and annoying in a lot of ways.
100%.
Yeah,
obviously,
it's the older brother just bragging like, "Look what I got! Look what I got!"
You know what
Look
I
what
think?
Shit.
I think it was twofold. I think there were Habs fans who were like, "Hey, see that? Like that's a team friendly deal." But then I think there were Leaf fans out there who either were like, "Oh yeah, well our guys are better," which there were some, I'm sure, but there were also Leaf fans who were just like, "Man, like my Dubas fumbled with our guys," and then Leaf fans started defending that by saying, "No, well actually Marner is better," and then Habs fans were like, "No, well screw you, Caufield's better," and I think that's where it all kind of came from, is just idiots on both sides kind of getting involved. I'm ecstatic with Cole Caufield's contract. Do I think Marner's contract's a bit overpaid? Yeah, but that's a debatable thing for nothing. But that dude also puts up way more points, and he's a winger nominated for the freaking Selke. Like,
yeah.
Let's talk about that for a second. Like, you sit in your bubble, be happy with Marner. I'll sit in my bubble, be happy with Caufield. If you want to hate each other either way, that's fine. But like, I do think it was just. I saw Leafs fans getting upset at Dubas. I'm sure some other people saw Habs fans bugging their Leaf friends about it. I think it was just everyone just bugging each other because both our teams are out of the playoffs and we're both miserable.
100%. That's what it all comes down to. And, you know, look, yeah, there's obviously going to be those direct comparisons and debates. I mean, still, in regards to teams that are out of the playoffs and looking towards the offseason, the Leafs are the story of this offseason right now. You know, now that we know the draft lottery results and everything like that, all eyes are on Toronto and what the hell they're going to do. So when you have a fellow Canadian team get a deal that is viewed by a lot of people as a bit of a steal, yeah, naturally people are just going to fucking poke each other back and forth to have that argument. And again, like, who's to say? You know, I mean, again, there's obviously the differences in production, the age, and stuff like that. But I bring it back to what we mentioned about all those guys that you mentioned, Caufield included in that group. If you're the Leafs, at the end of the day, you had to sign. I mean, William Nylander signed $7 million. That's nothing. Like, say what you want about like the time it took to get him there, because they didn't sign. Like, yeah, like they didn't sign that deal until
December.
You know, December, yeah, I think it was December 1st of 2018. Like,
Yeah,
there was that whole to-do. The Marner deal, the Matthews deal. Yeah, you probably should have played a little bit more hardball, but if they weren't willing to budge, the alternative was then trading Mitch Marner or Austin Matthews before they signed those deals, and you would have taken a hell of a lot more heat for trading one of those two than you would have for signing them for too much.
Exactly.
Same thing with Cole Caufield. Like, say Cole Caufield right now was like, no, my number's $9 million. And that comes out, but at the end of the day, you still have Kent Hughes being like, well, fuck, I can't do that. Let me trade you. What do you think Habs fans would be more pissed about? Giving him $9 million or trading him? Right?
Yeah.
Like,
Exactly.
it's just, you have to, at a certain point, back your younger guys. And I agree, it's on a GM to do the best they can to get that number down. But again, the reason why Caufield's number's down, sure, Suzuki, it's a nice story. The reason why his number's down is because in terms of bargaining power, the Habs can use the shoulder injury against him. They can use the, well, your production compared to this. Even though, again, as we talked about, well, there's a reason why such and such happened. It's a good deal for the Habs. It is a good deal.
Yeah.
It doesn't really matter if it's a slight overpay because, again, like end of next year, Mike Hoffman's deal's off the books. Joel Edmondson's deal's off the books. Carey Price probably goes back to LTIR, unfortunately. Like, as you mentioned, the cap space that they will have Cap friendly right now. Preseason LTIR candidate estimates. Cap hit of LTIR candidates 10.5 million, which I believe is
all
Carey
of Carey
Price.
Price. Yep.
Yep.
And then their cap space with LTIR candidates $11.2 million.
And you look at their players they got. Dennis Gurianov, they might bring back. Belzile, cheap deal. Duran, I don't think so. Tierney, I don't think so. Paul Byron, I don't think so. Sean Monahan, maybe. You still got like $7 million before you make a move,
if not more. Yeah.
If not more. And then after that, Hoffman's off the books. Rem Picklett will probably get re-signed. Joel Edmondson might be gone. Justin Barron's an RFA, and then Chris Weidman and Sam Montembeau. Like, you've locked up a good chunk of these guys to really good deals for a while, and who knows?
Pretty much.
You can fit Pierre-Luc Dubois in there. That's easy.
Yeah. I mean, literally, they could.
Yeah.
They could. And I mean, that's the thing, right? Like, by the time, the next crop of deals after Suzuki and Caufield come up, enough of those veteran guys that just didn't work are going to be off the books, and that's where the money comes from.
Exactly.
And obviously, then you're starting to talk about, the cap going up, you hope. Obviously, teams have been burned on that before. But I do think they're in a great spot. And again, pretty much since day one, you have to be excited about Kent Hughes as a Habs fan. Like, I think he's done a phenomenal job so far.
Yep.
And obviously, they're set up relatively interestingly in this upcoming draft with a 5th overall pick. I really don't feel like too many people are talking about that. And they have Florida's pick as well. So, 2 first-round picks this year, unless the conditions on that Florida pick mean it might stay. But regardless, they have it. Yeah, the result is there. Never mind, I just double-checked. Yeah, they have it. Ben Sherratt, by the way, for the 31st or 32nd overall pick.
It was really close to being a lottery pick, too. But yeah,
you're right. Jesus.
It was close. But just on that final note, I got 2 things for Kent Hughes during the draft. Literally, he cannot mess up this draft. You got Bedard, Fantilli, Mitchkov, Smith, and I think Carlson. You take whatever one is available. That's it. That's it. That's it. Whatever one of those 5 is left, you take him. That's 1. 2, he's got to get a young goalie prospect or a young goalie. He's going to make some moves around there and all that kind of stuff. I don't know where, but I think that's going to be their Achilles heel in the next 5 years. As long as he can get that goalie of the future, this team's going to be really damn good in a couple of years.
I like that take as well of like, hey, don't overthink it.
Just pick any. I don't care. Habs fans don't care who it is. Even if it's Mitchkov. If he's ready in 2 years, great. Caufield's going to be point per game in 2 years. Suzuki hopefully will be too. No rush. Don't mess it. They're going to. I'm scared they're going to mess it up. They're going to pick someone who's like 10th or something.
I mean, that's the thing though, right? This is a pretty deep first round. It would be the year where they're just like, hey, this Nate Danielson guy from the Brandon Wheat Kings, I mean, he's ranked anywhere from like 15th to 26, but we think he should have been top 10. We call that Don Sweeneying around these parts.
Yeah.
I can understand the fear of that because with that 5th overall pick, they should get somebody great. And odds are it's going to be a center, which to me is a little bit interesting. Just in terms of what that could mean for the Habs. Because, you talk about their center depth right now, it's Suzuki and Doc, unless you move Doc to the wing full time.
Or you get Dubois.
God, Jesus. And then obviously they have like Owen Beck and Sean Farrell in the system. Sean Farrell, especially, who they just signed out of college.
Yeah.
Habs are looking good.
I'm hoping they take Mitchkov, and then you get Dubois, and man, that core is looking really, really good.
Whether or not it plays out, time will tell. But indeed, the whole on paper side of things, it is looking pretty good.
Absolutely.
So here we go. The real main event. Again, I talked about a certain coaching rumor on my channel in a separate video, but we had to talk about it here as well. First and foremost, in terms of coaching changes, we did miss this last week, and that was the news that the Washington Capitals have brought in Spencer Carberry as their new head coach, who Endo is rather familiar with, of course, as a Toronto Maple Leafs fan. He had been an assistant coach with the Leafs for the past 2 seasons. Before that, he was with the South Carolina Stingrays for a long time as an assistant coach, a head coach, director of hockey ops. Bounced around a little bit before he was the head coach of the Hershey Bears, and now goes back to the Caps organization, but as head coach of the team. First-time head coach at the NHL level for the 41-year-old. You love to see it. First-time coaches getting a chance. Yeah, Spencer Carberry. There is another first-time head coach. The Anaheim Ducks today signed Greg Cronin, who just turned 60 years old 3 days ago. So happy birthday to him, as he is now also a first-time head coach at the NHL level. And he has been coaching in hockey since before any of us were born.
God damn.
He had his first coaching gig at Colby College in Maine, his alma mater, in 1988 as an assistant coach. He was an assistant coach with the UMaine Black Bears, with Colorado College, and then back with the Black Bears as a head coach, and then was an assistant coach with the New York Islanders from 1998 to 2005, including also being director of player development, was the head coach of the Bridgeport Sound Tigers, was the head coach at Northeastern, an assistant coach with the Leafs, then back with the Islanders, and then has been the head coach of the AHL's Colorado Eagles since 2018, and now gets a shot with the Ducks. And again, who knows how it will go, but it's somebody getting a chance. So for that, Anaheim, thank you very much. And then there's Columbus.
That's the only way you can segue into it. New chance, new start. Columbus.
So, the elephant in the room. Mike Babcock is rumored to be getting a 4-year contract with the Columbus Blue Jackets.
Damn.
Yeah, because every fucking head coaching contract's 4 years now, I swear to God. So obviously with this is dinner's almost ready, Rahil, so we won't take up too much more of your time.
This hungry man is ready to go.
Obviously with this, Mike Babcock, former Stanley Cup winner, accomplished head coach at the NHL level. No one's denying that. The issue with him, obviously, is him as a fucking person. And look, people are being like, but what about second chances? That's what I've heard a lot of. Number one, you are a sports head coach. This is not somebody getting out of prison for fucking marijuana offenses, where it's like, hey, can we please give this person a second chance? This is somebody who was a sports coach. You are not inherently deserving of a second, third chance. You will be given that if a team feels like you can help them win, which clearly Columbus does. More on that in a second, because what the fuck are you thinking? Obviously, the issue with him, not the same as a Joel Quenneville situation or whatever. Not the same as what's-his-face in Calgary, who was with Carolina, and all that stuff, the Akeem Alou stuff, and kicking Michael Jordan, the GOAT. Obviously, with him, it's not just the Mitch Marner thing, which is a big aspect of it. You know, the story that comes out about, hey, Mitch, I gotta mumble because I'm fuck, I hate everything about this fucking guy. Not only is it the idea of being an absolute dickhead to a teenage Mitch Marner, which I love when people are like, what about second chances? Because he had a chance to prove he wasn't a fucking dickhead in Toronto. That was his second chance, and he proved that he still was. It's everything before that with the Detroit Red Wings. And we're not just talking about, oh, Mike Commodore's salty. We're talking about Chris Chelios corroborating the story of Johan Franzen about Mike Babcock making this guy's life a fucking living hell to the point of a mental breakdown. I'm sorry. That is not the, well, let's see if he learns. He might have learned. He spent a few years away, you know. It's not that to me at all. I mean, again, there are some people worthy of a second chance. I fail to see any logic that can wrap around why this person is inherently deserving of a second chance. I feel like you've already, again, the whole saying of, hey, when someone shows you who they are, believe them. Mike Babcock's a fucking scumbag who had a chance to prove that he had changed in Toronto and instead decides to not only target Mitch Marner, continues his bullshit nonsense of sticking it to veteran players, not playing Mike Modano for what would have been his 1,500th career game in Detroit, and then does the same fucking thing to Jason Spezza in what would have been his debut with the Leafs in Toronto when his family's in the fucking building thinking he's going to play. Why is the third time going to be the charm? I fail to see it.
And it's interesting because with the Chelios thing, I think the first thing that a lot of the Babcock defenders are going to say is, oh, well, it's hockey. It's a tough sport. Like, you got to toughen up. Listen.
Oh, I've been told I need a backbone.
Listen, and listen, if it was like a rookie or like something, like, okay, maybe your point has 1% of validated, whatever the fucking word is.
Validity,
Chris fucking Chelios, like, fucking grizzled NHL defenseman. He's played the most playoff games, I believe, in NHL history, or it might be Patrick Marleau, I'm not sure. But Chelios had at one point. Like, this isn't some dude who's like a little like, oh yeah, I'm sent. Like this is a fucking grizzled NHL veteran who's like, dude, like he literally said he got chills bringing up the Franzen incident. Like, that to me is the caveat of it all. You have like, excuse me, like an experienced NHL person, someone who you could argue is from that era where it started to end of like that tough hockey, like, you know, like, oh yeah, just play it off, you're fine. Like, he's literally saying he chokes up talking about this story. I think that tells you all you need to know about Mike Babcock, honestly. Like, I feel bad for Johnny Gaudreau. That's all I can say. He goes from friggin' Daryl Sutter to Mike Babcock. Good luck, buddy.
Well, that's the point, right? And Endo, feel free to interject if you had a point you wanted to make. Again, it's just that thing to me of, oh, the second chances. We'll ignore this shit because we feel like he can help us win. Which is why, by the way, you still see Steve Simmons simping for Stan Bowman to get another GM job, or Joel Quenneville to get another job as a head coach, which guess what? Joel Quenneville will too. That's going to happen because the team will be desperate enough. And it's sad, and it has nothing to do with the Blue Jackets inherently or Blue Jackets fans. Someone was going to do this. Unfortunately, it's the Blue Jackets who are desperate enough. And I think desperation's the key word because this looks like a terrible, terrible fit. And I do not know who the president of this team is. They deserve as much blame as well because Jarmo Kekalainen's been there for 10 years now. And I'm sorry, but if I'm above Jarmo Kekalainen and I'm like, this is your move, 10 years in, this is your move, you're gone too. Like, I'm sorry, but I can't help but view it that way because you look at the makeup of this team, and it's very similar. You just mentioned Calgary and Daryl Sutter. Calgary's big failure this season was making the Tkachuk trade to bring in more skill like Huberdeau, but to still try and keep the team under the same gritty style. And the defender's like, well, he wasn't allowed to fire Daryl Sutter. You still brought in Brett Ritchie, Trevor Lewis, kept Milan Lucic on the main roster. You still didn't necessarily try to convert that roster to something that would allow Huberdeau to at least have a better shot at flourishing under that different system.
Yeah.
You look at the Blue Jackets roster now. Gaudreau, Line A, younger guys like Marchenko, Cole Sillinger. How the hell does a Mike Babcock fit? And some people might be like, well, he coached, Zetterberg was skilled, Datsuk was skilled. Okay, that's the bar, because future Hall of Famers who were skillful players succeeded in Detroit once, by the way. Well, they made back-to-back final. Yeah. Because they succeeded. Don't worry, the skill here will be fine. And what's the thinking? He's gonna elevate Matthew Olivier. And just you wait, you haven't seen hockey until you've seen Eric Robinson playing a Mike. Don't even get me started. Eric Goodbranson for the Norris, because Mike Babcock's going to be his head coach this year. Don't you know? And that's a great fit. Just everything about this, from the person to the idea that this is the right fit for this team, it is all beyond mind-boggling to me. I just don't get it. Especially when you see these other teams hiring new faces. Especially when you see, someone like Patrick Waugh winning a Memorial Cup in Quebec, where they won 72 of 90 games played, regular season and playoffs. Someone like Patrick Waugh, who probably deserves a second chance, as opposed to Mike Babcock getting his third opportunity. Technically his fourth. People forget that he was the head coach of the Anaheim Ducks when they went to the Cup Final in 2003.
Yeah.
Patrick Waugh, by the way, 5-time Jennings winner, 4-time Stanley Cup champion, 3-time Vezina winner, 3-time Conn Smythe winner, 2-time Memorial Cup winner, won a Jack Adams a decade ago, and of course won the QMJHL championship this year and a Memorial Cup.
Not good enough.
We're going to bring in Mike Babcock because Patrick Waugh got in a fight on the bench that one time as a coach 10 years ago.
The scary thing is Jack Roslovic, Alexander Texier, Kent Johnson, Kirill Marchenko, Cole Sillinger, Liam Foudy, all UFAs or RFAs next year. I wonder how many of them are going to play one season of Babcock and go, nope, I'm out. See you later. I know some of the RFAs don't have a choice, but I wonder how many of those guys would have played for a season under Patrick Waugh, who just, as you said, won a Mem Cup with a bunch of young guys. You saw the way they were. I saw them pouring Gatorade on his suit. They freaking loved him. And I'm sure he was a bit of a hothead too. Patrick Waugh's been a bit of a hothead at times, but he's someone who I think Endo and Tougie, you'd both agree to this. He's someone who's kind of earned his second chance. And it's like, man, Columbus is like, I could see Patrick Waugh getting picked up by someone and he is going to flourish. I would not be shocked.
It's one of those things, and I said on Twitter, like the NHL just sometimes makes it so difficult to enjoy the sport, and just the idea that, here we go, we're gonna give this guy a chance again for no reason whatsoever. Really, I don't get it. It's like, and the Avs under Waugh, it's like they made the right choice to move on. He moved on, similar to Kyle Dubas. The idea of like, hey, I need a little bit more hands-on option from the people upstairs. Give me some breathing room here, and they wouldn't. Not that, of course, Kyle Dubas was the head coach, but you get the idea, chain of command. But again, wins the Jack Adams. They missed the playoffs the next 2 years. They decide to move on. But since then, again, has consistently, in the time that he's been back with the Ramparts, he's never missed the playoffs. He's actually never missed the playoffs with them.
Yep.
And has won 2 Memorial Cups. You mean to tell me that's a guy who can't get another chance? You mean to tell me that there wasn't anybody else in the AHL? I mean, hey, we just saw the Colorado Eagles head coach hired. Nobody even overseas. Like, I'm shocked that they're just like, yep, this is the guy that's worth the baggage because he's going to push us over the top. Old strategy was my other main response, and that's all I can see. But
that Eagles team, the Colorado Eagles team, was so good that they got bumped up from the E to the A. Reminder, they switched affiliates from the ECHL to the AHL, and that was the same head coach. So that team won like 3 Kelly Cups like back to back or something like that, and they got moved up. It was insane.
Doesn't matter, boys club.
Oh yeah.
That's the NHL.
It's a fun time. With that, we'll look to wrap things up before your dinner gets cold, sir. But I'm very glad you were on and to be able to make it on relatively short notice to talk about the Habs and everything like that. It was great to have you here, and good luck to whoever's on the show on Thursday. The high bar has been set.
No, go ahead. You can finish off. I'll say myself.
No, I was going to say, the floor is yours. Say what you want. Plug what you got to promote.
Nah,
Sure.
I was just gonna say thank you guys both for having me. Absolute pleasure being on here. Had some good laughs, had some good discussion. Kind of nice being away from Saphir a little bit. Don't tell him I said that, even though he'll probably watch this podcast. But no, absolutely loved it. Super, super glad that Cole Caufield signed. So shout out to Cole Caufield. Thank you for getting me on this podcast. Much appreciated. Yeah, just end it off on that. Absolutely love it, guys. Thank you so much. And looking forward to I might have to take a sneak peek on Thursday's episode and see how the next guest does.
There you go. Endo. Just Endo. Do you have channel, handle changes for all of that yet, or what's the deal?
Yeah, so the YouTube is up. It's just Endo. I'm trying to get Twitch up and going, but they're not sending me my authentication stuff. Twitch is Twitch.
Yeah.
Amazon run things are like shit. Granted, NHL's servers are run by Amazon. So what do you think? What do you know? Yeah, but you can catch me everywhere at It's Just Endo. I'm probably gonna have Endo Mills up for a little bit longer. I have to go change my fucking website now and go buy another domain. God, I think it renewed too, so it's gonna be a waste of money. But anyways, yeah, that's all I got going on for myself.
I'm everywhere at Tougie24. We have one more show, everybody, before I also depart for the land of the Finns, which I cannot wait for, to be able to separate myself that much more from the NHL and not having to worry about watching games because I'm not staying up until 1 a.m. to do so. It's going to be a good time. With that, we will see you all later this week. Again, follow the man on Twitter, on Twitch, on Twitter, it's just at an Angry Brown Guy, but Twitch is Angry Brown Guy, is it not?
Everywhere else is Angry Brown Dude because guy was taken.
That's not confusing.
I know, man.
We'll see you later this week, everybody. Thanks for listening.